Yo, what's up guys? This is my first Dragon's Dogma 2 video. I've been playing since the game's release. I'm now on Journey 2, and Journey 1 kind of pissed me off. There was storyline blockers, crashes the first couple of days, those cleared up. Now on Journey 2, I've experienced a crash that is a storyline blocker for me in Vermund. I uninstalled and reinstalled the game, and that was able to get me past the crash, but I did have to skip the cutscene. The first couple of days of the release, I was experiencing crashes in the pawn menus and in the vocation menus. Those cleared up, and I thought for the most part everything had been patched out, because after the first 2 days it was pretty seamless gameplay. And then in Journey 2 I experienced the same crash in Vermund that I experienced in the first playthrough, so that was kind of disheartening, but it's such a captivating game I continue to play regardless. This time through though, I'm following guides, because in the last journey, when I got to the end game, after the ending, the true ending, I did not get to go to the Dragon's Forge because there was no time constraint placed on saving the Agamon dig site. For some reason the ruins weren't considered a time constraint quest. There was no hourglass on that quest, and what happened is the catastrophe reached Agamon, and then the Dragon Forge turned red. When I got there, I didn't know what I was supposed to do. I didn't even know Dragon Forge weapons were there. I plunged the empowered Godsbane sword into the beam, and that took me directly to the ending. And unfortunately I didn't get to get in-game weapons. I didn't get to experience a lot of the opened map, and that pissed me off. I wish there was some sort of user interface that told you there was a time constraint, and that if you did not act quick enough you would lose that quest, but unfortunately there wasn't. I wish that would be something that's addressed in one of the upcoming patches, but they are making a pretty sizable patch that's going to happen this month, and it's for all platforms. And according to Capcom, each platform is going to get the update as soon as it's finished. So if they finish with Steam first, Steam's getting their update, PlayStation and Xbox, so whoever gets it first gets it first. There's no timetable, no specific date, just that it's happening this month. As for the specifics of this patch, they are planning to reduce the infection frequency of Dragon's Plague and adjust the signs of pawns infected with Dragon's Plague to be more noticeable. For example, when infected, glowing eyes will be more noticeable. Now, I did not notice on Journey 1, I wasn't even paying attention, and I did have a Dragon's Plague infection in Bak Batal, and it killed a lot of NPCs, most of my vendors. I used Wake Stones to revive all of them, and also a couple of NPCs that were important to quests that I was currently on, one of which was the main quest. So fortunately I did have a sufficient number of Wake Stones, and fortunately they do have the Wake Stone function in the game, so that was, I actually like the challenge of having the Dragon's Plague. It adds another layer of difficulty to a game that otherwise is not that difficult. I really enjoy games that are difficult, from software games, Souls-likes, and this combat system, even though it's really fun and captivating, doesn't have that level of difficulty in it. So having something like that is just, it's pretty fun. I really do like the way they have the combat for, large monstrosity, colossal sized enemies, but I wish they did have like a dodge iframe mechanic or something like that, because this is more like on the Skyrim level of difficulty. Like, even in my first journey that I messed up, the deaths, single digits, low single digits, and it was usually from just like falling. So take from that what you will. Now to get back to the patch, they're adding the option to zoom in on the faces of the Arisen and pawns in the status screen, shops, etc. That's also going to help with the detection of the Dragon's Plague. That's another thing. I really didn't notice the red eyes, but in my second playthrough, knowing that Dragon's Plague was a thing, I talked to the pawns constantly, always zooming in on their faces however I can, but there's no zoom function. That's why I have to talk to them, and I usually wait till nighttime and turn off the lantern and then talk to them, so I get like a really good look at the eyes, because the eyes are not really as noticeable as they should be for this to be a function in the game. They're fixing some issues and implementing adjustments related to the mini-map. Treasure chests that have already been acquired won't be displayed on the mini-map. That is awesome, because I keep running across the same treasure chests that have already been opened just because it has the little emblem on the mini-map. They're making adjustments to pawns' behavior and dialogue. They're fixing issues where occasionally the player couldn't high-five pawns. I'm having the issue high-fiving pawns too, and you know that increases the affinity that you have with your main pawn, high-fiving them. And if you can't get that off sometimes, it also just feels crappy just leaving them hanging, even though they are just NPCs in a game. They're fixing issues where pawns wouldn't start guiding after offering to guide. I've run across that myself. Making pawns less likely to fall off cliffs. That's awesome. Every time I go searching for a Seeker's token and they come after me, I have a bunch of dead pawns at the bottom. They're reducing the frequency of some of the pawn dialogue lines. That's awesome, because they do get repetitive. They're improving pawn lines to better match circumstances. That's good as well. Fixing some issues where the main pawn speaks support pawn's dialogue. They're making pawns more likely to aid the Arisen if the Arisen commands them to help while being held by enemies. Yes, that's a good one, because if you don't gesture, they won't come. I hate that. Like when you're being held and you're trying to get help, it's only a gesture. So maybe they're going to add some dialogue or something to the Arisen so you can call out for your pawns instead of having to gesture. They're reducing the frequency of pawns offering to be hired by the player while in the field. Yes, it's crazy. That animation, whenever you walk across a pawn and you don't even interact with them and they just starts into that animation, and it's like every 5 feet there's a pawn. That could do with a reduction. They're fixing issues where sometimes escort quests are considered failed when accessing character edit or other specific situations. That has happened to me. They're fixing issues where the player could be jailed when fighting monsters in town. I have not been jailed yet. I've not run across that. I'd like to get jailed. That would be a new experience. And they're fixing some crashes and freezes in specific circumstances. I'm hoping it's the circumstance that I've come across. It's that initial cutscene when you reach Vermund. That's where I particularly have a freeze and sometimes a crash. And there's some miscellaneous bug fixes, so hopefully it will be something good, something that I personally have run across just for my own personal benefit. All in all, I think this is a good patch. I hope it takes care of the issues that we are all experiencing. I do think this game is in a very good place. It's in a playable state, and it's been in a playable state since past the first week, but the first week was just, it was crap. And I think it had a launch that was almost as bad, if not worse, than Lords of the Fallen. Because when I played Lords of the Fallen, I did not run across any crashes, any FPS drops, or anything like that other players were experiencing. The only thing I didn't like was not having a cutscene option, like skip cutscene option rather. That was annoying, and that was like maybe a week they didn't have a skip cutscene button on the PC version, so every time you died to a boss you had to go through that entire cutscene. But fortunately the bosses in that game are easy, so you're not running through that cutscene a lot, except for that very first boss. Now that sucked because you're at your weakest, and she's actually a pretty tough boss, like the toughest in the game's the first one you run across, and then but after that, you know, it was fine. So in my personal opinion, this had a worse launch than Lords of the Fallen, but it is a more captivating and more replayable game than Lords of the Fallen, so it does get marks there. I think a lot of it was hate. A lot of the bad press on this game was hate because of the microtransactions. The game was in a better state than a lot of people were saying, but the opinions were skewed because of the microtransaction thing, which is awful. I personally think, you know, it's an awful thing for a company to do, but since this is a single player PvE game and it's not a PvP scenario where it would be a pay to play sort of thing, that they're just milking people, even though it's not going to create any unfair gameplay. It's not as bad as it could have been, but it's still pretty shitty. But that's all I got for today, guys. Y'all have a great weekend and peace.